Hey, everybody.
Hi.
Welcome to the Community Foundation. I'm Nick River. You're stuck with me because Alicia is in Syracuse for meetings and she sends her regrets. So you're expecting to see her. I'm sorry for letting me down. But we have some really important partners here today. I'm glad you all make the time out of your schedule to hear about, obviously, all the time in the work that we do for not-for-profit. Budgeting is secret sauce that makes our work happen. But especially in the past few months for obvious reasons. So I know our organization has worked very closely with Beth Shannon and Dustin at Universal Bookkeeper. They've helped several of the nonprofits that we partner with on some charitable funds. They help some of our donors who are business owners. I want to give them a shout out. I just actually went on yesterday. They got a beautiful new website, by the way. I'm not sure to talk about that. So if you haven't seen it recently, really ton of information on there. We don't do referrals, I guess, is the way to phrase it here, but we know partners that we would trust some of our fund holders to go talk to. And they've always served us really well. So the fact that we're able to carve out time during tax season to come here to talk to you all, we're very grateful for. And again, as a representative of the Community Foundation, you see some of our team around the edges. We just appreciate you taking time to build some capacity and knowledge for your organization, and hopefully you can get a couple of things today out of the presentation to take back to make your work and day-to-day job or volunteer or your board member service better. So again, enjoy the presentation, interact, ask questions. These guys are great on their feet. And again, thanks for coming to the Community Foundation, and we're glad to have you. Yep.
All right. Thank
you guys very much.
Thank you. All right. Thank you, everybody, for coming. It's so great to be speaking to a really great group of people, nonprofit leaders from the Whitmer and Oneida counties. My name is Justin Miller. I'm the CEO of the University Bookkeeper, and my co-presenter, Sharon Riley, and I actually are the controllers for over 20 nonprofits that we currently work with at University Bookkeeper. So, contrary to my bullish looks, I've actually been working in nonprofit land in a leadership role for over 13 years. I can actually remember my very first job in a CFO role, walking in and come to find out, well, we couldn't make payroll. We were borrowing from our line of credit to make payroll. All of our vendors were being paid over 90 days. We had no access to any of our reserves. It was a mess. So I've been really high and also lungs with you. And in my experience during that first job, I did a lot of radical things. I even put a leadership team, including myself, on a work share plan to save money for the organization. I went so far as to decrease the office supply budget to the place where we were actually only ordering pen refills and not even pen. And actually, you laugh because that's actually a practice that I still have today. You look at my drawer, I have all pen refills. So I'm going to have that in a little bit. But after a couple of years, we actually got to the point where, listen, we were actually putting money into our endowment, paying our vendors on time. We were investing in the mission, into the people. And after a couple of years, it got to the point where things were just running on autopilot. And I actually decided to leave that organization to do something that was just a little bit more painful. So it can be done. I've seen it happen. So the point today is I want you guys to start thinking about your not-for-profit in a different way. I want you to start thinking about it as if it's a for-profit industry. I want you to think of it like it's like you're an entrepreneur, okay? Some of the ideas that we're going to talk about today, they're not new, but I want you to think about them a little bit differently in new light. You know, when I think about not-for-profits, I think that there's a tremendous amount of opportunity that's out there for you. You guys might have to pay taxes, you can solicit donations, and you've got a designated board that is specifically there to support you in your mission, right? As opposed to a for-profit business that has to pay taxes, has to earn every dollar, and in most cases has to pay for that, coaching or strategic leadership to help them. So when you think about it, when you put those things together, there's so many opportunities for not-for-profits to succeed. And so that's what we're going to talk about today. So today we're going to talk about three main topics: metrics, budgets, and decision-making. And again, I want you to think of them in a different way. I want you to think of them using this catchphrase that we have in our business at Universal Bookkeeper, thinking beyond the tradition. That's something we say every single week within our business. We're always trying to make it better and innovate for our clients. So as we start our discussion, I want to ask the group, does anybody have a financial dashboard that they look at on a regular basis? Yes. Okay. Excellent. Are you listening metrics? So one of the things that I highly recommend for every organization, for profit or not-for-profit, is to implement a dashboard that's going to display the information for your financials down to something like as leaders in your business, you have your hands in so many different areas. You need to be focusing on the 3 to 5 different areas that make an impact for your organization. And once you see deviations in those metrics, then that's an opportunity to dive into it a little bit more deeper. And that's where you then implement the support of your CFO or your accountant or things like that. But you gotta be looking at like the small amount of information that's going to impact the business. We want to make sure we have clarity and not clutter. You're not looking at every single line item of profit and loss and trying to extrapolate that information out of it. At Universal Bookkeeper, we utilize and invest in a lot of software that helps us to work with our clients and distill that information into things that are meaningful for them. And a lot of times we use QuickBooks Online. A lot of times you can't always get the information the way you need it. So you got to think about external software to support you with that initiative. And these, if you don't have any metrics that you're looking at, these are 3 or 4 that are going to get you started in your financial review. The first one is the operating reserve ratio. And I refer to this more so as the days of cash ratio. And what this is looking at the amount of cash that you have in the bank and how long it's going to support operations for your business if all of your revenue gets started out. So when I look at this, I actually look at this regularly for a lot of clients, for-profit, not-for-profit, and I even love to trend it along with my budget to see where my beginning cash is going to be in my budget year to the end of it. And as a benchmark, I want you to be thinking about 60 to 90 days worth of cash. Now, I know this sounds like a lot, and I'm going to talk about some strategies to get there. But once you get above 60 days of cash, then we're going to be thinking about short-term investment. Once you get above 90 days, then we're going to be thinking about long-term investment. The revenue diversification ratio. This is looking at all the different revenue sources and how much of a concentration you have in each one of them. So as we've seen a lot of showing up this year, it's going to be really important to understand what percentage of your revenue comes from which area. Similarly, I want you to be focusing on your customer concentration. Does one customer make up the majority of your income? And what happens if that customer decides to go in a different direction? These are things that are going to help you plan for the future. The fundraising efficiency ratio, I love this ratio, and I think that most not-for-profits don't look at it the right way. So what this is telling me is looking at the ROI of a fundraising event or an initiative to look at how profitable it is. Sounds simple enough. What most not-for-profits don't do is they don't think about the soft costs that go into that initiative. They don't think about the wages, the taxes, the benefits, the overhead, the office supplies that the fundraising department is using in that initiative. And what I tend to see when you actually factor those things in is that many of your fundraising events might be upside down. And that's really scary to realize. So my takeaway from this is to make sure that you're looking at it inclusively of all of those costs. And you might need to reallocate your initiatives and move your resources over to something that is actually more profitable. That's where if I see somebody do a base event, again, I'm going to lose it. Okay, they're just not getting use of your time. The last one is the program efficiency ratio. So this is looking at how much of your revenue is being allocated to program specific expenses as opposed to administrative expenses. So as a rule of thumb, I want you to be thinking about shooting towards 75% of your revenue to be allocated toward the program and 25% or less to be allocated towards administrative costs. So where I see not-for-profits, getting in trouble sometimes is when that ratio of administrative costs starts creeping up, right? 'Cause a lot of times what happens is when you get more money, we typically want to invest in new software or hire an admin to support you. I'm going to caution you to really keep this ratio in mind and try to keep it proportionate to the program specifically. All right. They're going to do a bedroom in here. Okay. So I love bedroom. I love everything about it. You know what else like bedroom? The Buffalo Bill. And my man Josh Allen. And even Josh Allen has to fit into a budget. They've got the cap rate and he's got a huge $250 million salary that they got to plan for. But what's happening in the Buffalo Bills, and also what you guys need to be doing in your business is scenario-based planning, right? When you put your budget together, you're actually throwing out like different ideas that could happen within your organization. Lots of times when I work with clients, I am asking them for their budget right from the beginning. And what they send me is an annualized profit and loss. There's minimums, there's where we're at, how we got there. And at that point, I look at it like, this is meaningless, right? Like, what's the story we're trying to tell here? All financials are a story. At our business, at the very least, the way we approach budgeting is we're extrapolating the profit and loss on a monthly basis. We can look at it in a code format. We're looking at the revenue sources, dissecting those, where they're coming from, what our anticipated rate change is going to be. We're looking at every single person on payroll to break out the wage, the taxes, the benefits, bonuses that might be included in there. And then for every profit and loss line item, we've got an explanation how we arrive at that number. Whether it's using a table or maybe it could be as simple as it's our best guess based on last year. You've got to have an explanation so that when you're looking at that benefit to actual number, it makes some sense. And you can tell the story to your board, to your finance team. But this is why we are deviating from plan. So if you're not remembering that, here's a couple of different ideas that we're going to go through in relation to budgeting that might pique your interest. So zero-based budgeting. A zero-based budget is starting from scratch every single year. So you're going to look at your program revenue that's coming in, and you're going to build that program from the ground up. Now, this is a little bit painful because you've got to start from scratch each year, but it helps. It requires you to ask a lot of questions like, do I need this software that I spent money on last year? Is the person that's currently in the seat going to be the right fit for this program next year? It requires you to critically think about building that from scratch. Another idea is using a flexible budget. So we use a lot in our business too. Flexible budgets are true to its name, flexible in nature. And what they're doing is they're assigning a percentage of revenue to every single expense line in your profit and loss. And the point being that if revenue goes up, you are allowed to spend more on that expense. But similarly, you got to be programmed that if revenue goes down, you got to spend less on that expense line. So when you think about wages in this example, you can't have everybody be on salary. Just can't. You've got to be thinking of some compensation models that are flexible in nature. Some months you might make more money, but some months you might make less. But that's going to work for our program. So whatever budgeting process that you use, my ask to you is to be ruthless in how you manage that budget. Lots of times we do budget more as a formality. It's a checkbox in the bylaws that we got to do it. We got to have it approved by the finance committee. And then we go about our day doing things the exact same way that we did them before. I'm asking you to hold the line on those expense line items unless it's absolutely mission critical. Because in all of these examples, you got to build a profit. You can't just assume we're going to break even on everything. Nothing ever goes to plan. Everybody. I like to think about a 5 to 10% margin built into every budget or the what if, scenarios. That you've got to be holding your team and your employees to that line. And they go over, okay, we're going to do a self-correct. What are you going to take away from in the budget in different areas? It's incredibly important. So making the budget is one step. The next step is sticking to the budget. Okay, do less with less. It's counterintuitive when we normally hear, right? We normally hear when it's a revenue reduction or a change in our program that we have to do more with less. Definitely a few of you have said that once or twice. I know I have, because I've definitely said it. But what happens when we constantly do more with less? We create burnout, we create inefficiency, and we dilute the impact that we're trying to achieve within our program. So instead of always trying to do more with less, what if we gave ourselves the permission to do less with less? In my opinion, there's a lot of fear about doing that. Fear that we're going to impact the mission somehow, fear that we're going to disenfranchise our stakeholders, fear that we're going to lose momentum, and thinking about the budgeting side, fear that we might lose somebody on our team that isn't a good fit for the organization anymore. But it's okay to take a breath, pause, reassess, and prune the tree back a little bit. It needs to be done every once in a while. So I'm going to give an example of this. So one of our clients, they do palliative care. And the way that palliative care works is they have a nurse practitioner and an RN go to a patient's home, and they do a palliative care visit, and they get to bill for that visit only by the nurse practitioner. And they don't get to bill for travel time, the emergency time, planning time. And historically, and for many years before we started working with them, they've always incurred about $100,000 loss in that program. But they always just absorbed it because it was the right thing for the patient. It was great for the community. It was a value-add initiative that they had. With changes in budgeting, the reimbursement model changing, I said to them, I don't think we can do this anymore. And we didn't get rid of the program, but we fundamentally changed how we did it. Instead of going to see the patient, we required them to come to the office, receive their services in an outpatient, manner. And that happened when we did that. Well, we lost 25% of patients. I think we were okay with that. We knew that was going to happen. But we also saved the organization $80,000 a year in that initiative. And again, we did not get rid of the program, but we fundamentally changed how we run by doing less with less. So an ask for you to ask yourself is, what are the things that you're doing in your business that are habitual, routine, or we're just doing it because we've always done it? Expense management gets me fired up. I love it. I love the planning behind it, but I'm going to flip it over to Shannon right now to talk about revenue diversification.
Good morning. So go to the next slide. So I'm just going to talk a little bit more in depth on some stuff that Justin already spoke about. Well, I know products are not doing well up here. So first I'm going to talk about, or Justin already highlighted the revenue diversification ratio. So I want to reiterate, you mentioned you're going to hear some things that you've already heard, right? And it might just go in one ear and out the other because it sounds familiar. But again, I want to reiterate, I want you to start thinking like an entrepreneur. I want you to start thinking differently about these topics. So the first one being the reoccurring giving program. So donations. I donate to a few programs, and while I was doing these slides and coming up with what I wanted to talk about, I thought about what makes me as a donor donate. One of the programs that I donate to is the St. Jude's Children's Research Hospital, which I'm sure everybody here has heard of. And while I thought about it, I'm like, well, it's the mission, right? The curing, preventing, treating of childhood cancer. Well, don't we all believe in that? I don't think anybody wants to see a child have cancer. And that hits home for me, but it's not just the mission, because I believe in it. We all believe in it. But I'm not doing anything to support them if I'm not giving financially, right? Like that makes the most impact. So what makes a donor donate? Anybody?
Cash for the cause.
Cause, empathy, passion. They want people give when they connect emotionally and repeatedly hear your mission. I remember for years, I would see it on the TV, right? The child who's sick with cancer, the parent who's saying, I wouldn't have been able to put my child through this if it wasn't for St. Jude. So how can we show the community our mission? How are you showing your mission? How are you telling your story? How are you getting those recurring donations? Because that's where it's really hard. So I challenge you, how can you do things differently? So that would be the revenue. Sorry, I got emotional, guys. But passionate, and that's why we donate. So corporate partnerships and sponsorships. How many of you have had these in the past? And how incredibly important have they been for your organization? Huge. We have a client right now that just got, I think it was like $27,000 from a local organization to give out grants to women in our local community. That's huge. And these companies are out there and they're looking. You want to start, what's in it for them? Some are looking for write-offs, and that's okay. Some people want to invest in your mission and they want to see that measurable impact that you are creating. So you just, as a nonprofit leader, you need to get out there. You need to get out there in the community. You need to network with these organizations. They are out there and they are looking to invest in our local community. Things like environmental, ethical, philanthropic responsibilities. Tell your story, have them see the mission, similar to the donors, right? It's the same sort of thing. You want to make sure you're continuously seeing the mission. All right, next, social enterprise model. So this is where the entrepreneur app really comes on. So I'm going to tell an example. Everybody needs a biller in hospices. So how many of you are familiar with the local hospices? Okay. So everybody needs a biller, and it's a little bit different than medical billing. It's very technical. So many of these people either have somebody in-house or they outsource it. So because of the technicality, a lot of people have been outsourcing it because they can't find the people, right, in the organization. So one of the local hospices has an exceptional biller. She's great. And the company decided to lean into this person and essentially set up a billing service line. So they made the investment, they hired an additional biller, and they developed a whole service line. They started one hospice, are now serving 5 and generating $125,000 in net profit from this service line, which is huge. So my question to you is, what can you do to start your own social enterprise model? Who in your organization can you lean into? Well, what type of person can you hire if you needed to help create this and streamline this? So that leads me to everybody's favorite topic, unrelated business income tax, or UBIT. So in a local nonprofit, what do you think of when you hear UBIT? What's the first thing that comes to mind? Crickets? No,
I don't want to deal with that.
you don't want to deal with that. How many of you have to deal with that? One. Okay, so not many. So I want you to think it's okay to pay tax. Do not be afraid of it. It is an additional compliance, but as long as you're talking with the right people and you have the right professionals hired, they can help you navigate this. And keep in mind, there's a ton of gray area with what is considered unrelated, because what is UBIT? It's tax on your net profit from unrelated activities that don't directly relate right to your exempt purpose. So that biller that we got what 125,000 in net profit, that would be taxed. It's taxed at the corporate tax rate, which is currently at 21%. So even if you thought about it as an expense, that 21%, it's like, I don't know, say less, it's a little bit more than say 25,000. So you're still almost at $100,000 net profit. You're not going to risk your exempt purpose or anything. So just don't be afraid of UBIT, and always consult with a tax advisor or an attorney. Make sure you have somebody in your court that you know and trust and is going to be great for your organization. All right, go to the next slide. All right, so now that we have our revenue, we're going to talk about cash flow. So I'll start by saying, although we focus on revenue, cash flow is the number one reason from our perspective. We have a lot of small businesses, for profit, nonprofit, doesn't matter. Cash flow is the number one reason why businesses struggle. And I think something important for you guys is grant reimbursement cycles. So think about your grant reimbursement cycles. How long are they? Are they a little too long? Are there hangups that are causing the delay? Is it your financials? Are they disorganized? Think about where you can streamline and improve these. Can you diversify your funding to focus on grants that you know are coming in, right? So, or what if there's delayed grants or grants that are no longer coming in at all anymore, right? Due to the political climate. So definitely things to focus on there, definitely things to streamline, look at internally. Managing accounts payable and receivable. So another hospice that we had, they have what's a resident in their residence in their facility, and this would be where people go, towards the end of their life, not in a home or a hospital, but they'll stay at the hospice. So historically, this hospice has been waiting until the patient passes and then flipping over the bill to the family. What do you think's happening? They're not getting paid, right? About 50% of the time, this is before we came in, they were not getting paid because those funds had been used for funeral or other arrangements. They had no money. So this hospice was regularly writing off quite a portion of their AR every single month. When we came in, we said, something has to change. So what we did is we implemented a brand new policy where we take 1 week up front, and then every Monday we're billing that client, whether it's a credit card, a bank account, something, we're automatically billing them. And guess what this did? Wiped out their AR completely. And then increased the profit in that cost center. I want to stress that the hardest part was for internally for the people to say, this is how we do it. As of this date, this is what we're doing moving forward, and changing the process. That was the hardest part, was getting the people inside to change how we do things. But once we did, it's been a game changer for the organization. So think about your accounts receivable and your accounts payable. Are these being streamlined? Can you automate these? Can you automate your invoicing like the hospice did? Can you collect the payment method upfront so that when the work is done, you can just bill them? What about your AP? Are you sending bills late or sending them too early because you don't want them to be late? Are you utilizing a platform or software? We use bill.com. I don't know if anybody here uses it, but it's great. You can schedule out bills. So we'll schedule them out just far enough where they go right on the due date. And that's been great. It also has internal approvals for, say, if your audit, for internal controls. That's been a game changer for us. But just take a look at your policy. What can you change? What can you update? All right. And then the famous words of Mr. David Ramsey, welcome or hate him, you need an emergency fund. So when we get into a new client, usually they have maybe like 10 to 15 days cash on hand, give or take. And as Justin highlighted, we want 3 to 6 months. So start small. You don't have to have that tomorrow. Start small, start allocating a portion of your unrestricted revenue, towards those reserves. And even get the board buy-in. Do like a rainy day emergency fund with a clear withdrawal policy. Get the board's buy-in with that. And as Justin said, you need a line of credit. So get one before you need it. So make sure you have a line of credit established so that's there to pull from. That ties right into your emergency fund. All right. What got you here won't get you there. How many of you guys remember the last scene from the original Willy Wonka? Does anybody remember the scene from the very last one? They're getting into the Wonka meter. Remember that? Anybody?
Yeah.
So it's Charlie's last child left, right? All the other kids have gone away. Charlie's last child left, and it's Charlie, Grandpa Joe, and Willy Wonka. And they get into the Wonkavator, and Grandpa Joe goes, an elevator. And Willy Wonka says, no, it's a Wonkavator. An elevator can only go up and down, but a Wonkavator can go slantways and sideways and frontways and backways and long ways and square ways and any other ways you can think of. And you press any button in this elevator, it'll take you to any room in the factory you'd like. And I press all of them, except for one. And it's that button to take you up and out, to go beyond the factory. So as Charlie press it, they start going up. Grandpa Joe gets a little nervous, says, the ceiling's made of glass. We'll be cutting it out pieces. We'll be cut to ribbons. And that right there is your limiting belief, your doubt. Somebody on your board's doubt, right? When new ideas are proposed, you try to do new things. The thing that's stopping you from trying that new thing, that is that. And I'm not saying I want to be right there with Grandpa Joe, Garrett Chillis, this probably isn't a good idea. What is that button in your organization that will take you beyond what you've done before? What is that thing that you're scared to do, or like you've been thinking about for a long time, and you haven't even brought it up in your board meeting? Start brainstorming some ideas. And then, I'm gonna go through some ideas, and I know a lot of you guys are already writing and stuff, so just jot down what comes to mind. I know when people say, like, when they create business ideas or they're looking to start a business, write down like 50 or 100 ideas, right? And then they maybe narrow it down to 3 or so. So just write what comes to mind as I go through these. So the fee-for-service programs, essentially what we talked about with the hospice, what are you great at? What are people in your organization great at? Where can you lean into them? Can you charge for experience, like expertise, consulting, resources? Where can you develop a service line? What about leveraging partnerships for greater financial stability? Can you co-create revenue sources or, develop relationships? Where can you thrive in partnering with local businesses? One of the local hospice group, they actually developed a shared resource group to outsource things like marketing, HR, billing, you name it, is in this group because they realized that they had to cut overhead in order to survive, in order to keep serving and bringing on their mission. So I believe if you're looking for shared services, you can talk to ICANN, which I think I see ICANN in the room. I believe you guys are starting your own shared service model. So they'd be a great person to talk to. All right, what about monetizing any nonprofit assets, things you already own? We have a client who has a beautiful new facility, and they went out, they just started posting on social media that they're renting out this beautiful big facility for events such as, birthday parties, workshops, weddings, whatever you want. It's beautiful. Do you guys have space? Do you have space that you could rent out like that? What if you just have an office? Do you have an office that you could run out? I know that there's a lot of people looking for spaces to work, whether maybe they're a stay-at-home, parent who's working or fully remote that needs to get out. Maybe they need an office that they just need to get out of the house and go to, or maybe it's a therapist who needs a place to just meet with a client. There's so many different ways you could think about it, and people who are looking for stuff that you don't even know. So just think outside the box in terms of space. Could you run out a tangible or digital asset? Do you have any tangible or digital assets? I think a lot about the library. The library always has so much stuff that you can borrow, but do you guys have anything that you can rent out in terms of that? Let's see. Could you sell branded merchandise or publications? What about anything you want? You could put out anything. But what about AI? How many of you are keeping up with the incredible, fast-paced world of AI? Anybody? Okay, I got to see your hand. I don't understand it myself, really. My little brother was telling me so many things. I'm like, what? Like, we can do that now? That's crazy. But there's so many things that you can do. And if you have people on your team who are technology, for what they can, lean into them. They'll be great resources for you. So some ideas that we thought of was, could you use AI for personalized driven donor outreach? Or could you have that person who was really techie create a chatbot that helps you write grants?
I need that.
Yeah. And we thought if you employ that's a great business.
Yeah.
Start where you could create a chatbot that writes grants or for grant writing assistance. That alone is some business idea, so that would be a good one. But basically, the possibilities are endless when you had you and your team are thinking and you're utilizing the tools available to you. You really can do anything. Okay, so I think we can all agree that the theme for 2025 thus far has been uncertainty. From the federal, the executive order to cut all federal funding to the recent dismantling of the U.S. Education Department to we're not sure what's next, right? And my point is that times are changing, and we need to put ourselves in a position to be able to pivot and be able to survive these changes and still serve the community and our mission. So one of our clients is a daycare, and around them are a lot of moderate to low income households, and many of them are on governmental assistance. So in January, when the executive order came through, we had a really hard conversation because we realized 50% of their revenue is parent revenue. The rest is all county subsidies, child food care programs, fundraising, donations, and grants. What if we lost 50% of our funding? Like, how are we going to keep our doors open and continue to serve the community? That was a really hard conversation and something we're still really thinking about. So I guess that leads me to is, how can we do it? I know a lot of you, I don't know what each of your financial, position is, especially with grants and funding, but how can we pivot and make sure that we can still survive and still carry out our missions in the local community? So a lot of things I mentioned earlier, we need to diversify our revenue. We need to diversify our revenue in terms of corporate partnerships and sponsorships. We need to come up with different service lines of business, that social enterprise model. We need to collaborate with other nonprofits and people in our community to build a strong support network. We need to reduce overhead costs, maybe by shared services. We need to stay informed on policy changes before they hit, and we also all need to be an advocate for those policies, right? We need to be a voice. We need to support those changes up in Washington, even locally. So my challenge for you is, times are changing. You really don't know. You really need to take a look at your financials. So I challenge you to do a what if scenario. What if this grant is gone? What are we going to do? What if this service revenue this one line that I'm relying on is gone tomorrow? What if it's part of the cut? What does that look like? What do my financials look like? And how am I going to pivot? Is it, am I going to have to do some layoffs? Am I going to have to change up a program that I'm offering? How am I going to restructure? You want to basically make sure that you have a plan in place before the crisis hits. And this is a great conversation for you to have with your board in your next board meeting. So that's what everybody will look at us and
Is your bird bored? Well, so I've seen this a lot. I've sat in on a lot of board meetings in my time, and let's talk about like what is the role of the board to begin with, right? Their role is to support you, provide guidance, but it's not to get into the weeds. It's not to look at the transactions that are flowing to your bank account or individual accounts in your property law. But what I do see a lot of times happening in board or board meetings, from that angle, is they're pretty dry, right? So you've got a leader that's presenting on a topic. They talk for 20 minutes, don't take a breath. Are they referenced? No. Okay, meeting adjourned, right? That board is not engaged. And what I want you guys to do is to think about how you can engage your board. When I talked about distilling the information down to a few metrics for your leadership, you got to distill it even more down for your board. And listen, you are either working in that nonprofit every single day. They come to a board meeting once a month, maybe even once a quarter. They do not remember what happened last month or last year. So my recommendation for you is to help them help you. Put together notes, what happened last month, and not just board minutes, like bullet points. What did we talk about last month? Really the follow-through items. Put your metrics in a graphical trend. There's nothing easier to remember than, or easier to look at when you're looking at a trend. Okay, this is where we were last month, this is where we were last year. That's going to help them help you. The other thing that I like to think about is you've got to ask engaging questions. First, like I talked about in that example where there's a dissertation happening and there's no dialogue, you got to open up the floor and give the opportunity to your board members to contribute. If they're not given a question, even if it's a layup question, like it's super easy to know the answer, they want to feel engaged. And by asking them for their input, whether you take it or not, is going to be that medium to help them get engaged. The more they're engaged, the more they're going to advocate for you inside the organization and outside the organization. So the other part of board's involvement is refreshing your board, right? Like how many times have we gone to a board meeting with the same people that are on the board for the last 10 years? We need to think about refreshing our board periodically to get different ideas, different perspectives. And I would tell you to start with looking at your bylaws. You don't have term limits built into your bylaws that just require you to get out into the community. Whenever you need them about marketing your business, you gotta just get out there and find new people to solicit to join your team on your board. So it's a great opportunity to expose yourself, to meet new people, bring in new perspectives, and that's going to help your mission grow, get some different ideas. So, as we said at the beginning, we've given you a lot of ideas, and we really want you to think beyond the traditional. There are, various ideas, various topics, metrics, budgets that we talked about. But what can you be doing differently? What can you be doing to position your business similar to a for-profit or an entrepreneurial mindset? We're going to be passing out some additional handouts. We've put together a playbook, a sustainability playbook, but it's got a lot of the ideas that we have talked about today, but also a ton of ideas that can springboard your mission, springboard your operation. So you can take this and kind of review the chats out. So as we close up to land and let's maps out, I wanted to ask you, what was the one thing that we talked about today that's still stuck in your mind or you're still thinking about? And I'm going to give you 30 seconds, like share with your neighbor and see what anybody comes up.
Here. Here. Yeah, a lot of things. It wasn't to get your sell your desk. Like be Yep.
Yeah. Yes.
You said that they told them that they no longer do at-home care, they do office care.
Yeah.
That changes the mission radically in how they think of themselves as helping the community. And you're helping people, especially at a level where they don't, the least of them. Okay. So it's hard for me to wrap my head around changing that much.
Sure. So, well, in this example, that was not their core mission. That was like a subsidiary that they were supporting. So I totally understand what you're saying. That wasn't the main mission, but the premise of that example was really like, we don't have a lot of money to spend on this. It's a nicety that we're doing.
Right.
And so we've got to change how we do it so we can actually help the greater organization.
Well, would I help? If that's not their core mission, then
Yeah.
I get it. 'Cause
Yeah, exactly. Anyway,
I loved the fact that you said give yourself permission, and then I forgot what else you said. But when you started with that phrase, it was so nice to be spoken to as another human being instead of another nonprofit leader. And that was very refreshing. And I appreciate that.
I appreciate that. Any other topics or any talk about or questions? Yes.
I think sustainability, trying to remember that to not having to worry about all of your money coming from one area, one nesting, or diversifying.
Yep.
So we actually did set up some moved banks to get 4% on CDs and
Yep.
things like that. That was a huge game changer.
Gotta be thinking
But
creative.
right now, we're looking for a secondhand clothing store. We've been taking in all the things. We have almost everything we need, but we're finding a hard time finding a location.
Okay.
Any suggestions on that?
Final location, I would actually, I would reach out to somebody at the community foundation because they are going to be a great resource to connect people. I had this exact conversation with Lucia like a couple months ago, and she talked about using that example. You've got somebody that maybe has a location that's not being utilized, but they hear it from somebody else that their roof needs to be replaced. And maybe, the community foundation is not able to give you $50,000 for your roof, but maybe you can utilize another location that's within our network. I would totally reach out to somebody here, possibly make a connection. Yep. Yeah, I see that a lot, and that's like a big discussion point. So we have a big niche in hospice land that I call it. And that's one of the big things that we've been talking about this past year. How do I diversify my revenues so I'm not 100% reliant? How do I get rid of the fundraising initiatives that are not really making a lot of money? And how do I focus on things that are making money? It's hard to think about we like programs and events, and there's a ton of time that goes into it, right? But you look at the ROI, but then we look at the ROI for like an annual peer mail, right? Now, you're going to be making so much more with the cost and the investment on the annual peer mailing. It's going to be far lower. Got to make sure you got reach.
Just to follow up on that, what is a good profit ratio on the individual?
I didn't say that during my presentation, and one of the bullet points I wanted to
Major fundraising
Okay.
here, and we do probably 65% above on those profit ratios. So to me, I'm always like, and as a CEO, I'm always like, oh, I'll just buy this.
Yeah.
No, that I'm retired, so I'm like, I do all that kind of stuff. But
So the thing what I use, is I don't want you sniffing a fundraiser unless it's giving you a 3 to 4x return on your investment, hard and soft.
okay,
One thing just about best way to look at fundraisers is not as a fundraising event, but treat them as cultivation where you can honor major donors, partners, build relationships with people, get people to learn more about it and treat secondarily the financial, always treat them as a cultivation event. And that way you know they're going to be successful, whatever the finances work out and putting the sponsorships, if it's that type of a event.
Yeah.
If that's where 80% of the money's coming and you're breaking even on the ticket part of it, once you figure out like the staff side of it, then are you putting 80% of your time into the sponsorships or are you worrying about the color of the napkins and
Yeah.
things like that?
Yeah.
right.
A couple of the event things.
And I think about like, I'm never saying get rid of all fundraisers, because they're not profitable. There are opportunities to have, I call them friend raisers, right? Where you're using, putting on an event specific to that example for the people that are contributing or your patron to expand your message, right? Anybody else have any questions? Follow? All right, I'll let you guys know 5 minutes early.